Hello, business building warrior. Welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio, the podcast that you probably know already features hundreds of great interviews with successful e commerce warriors like you who've built beautiful businesses. But what sets this show apart is everyone we interview here, they followed our system to build their successful business. We love the validation that gives our training, our content, our community, our coaching program, courses, to hear from student after student after student from all over the world who have followed the processes we teach here and gone on to build something worth sharing and encouraging and motivating others with. So that's what we're going to do today. We've got a guest today who will be with us in just a moment. Her name is Susanna Turok. She is from Hungary, but she currently lives in Istanbul. And in case you're not a geography expert, those places aren't in the United States. I love interviewing our international students because it proves what's possible. We say all the time around here, it doesn't matter where you live in the world, you can sell on Amazon in the United States. Doesn't matter where you live, you can buy and sell in the United States and build a beautiful business. Not too long ago, we had an interview with one of the great leaders in our community who has a multiple seven-figure business buying and selling on Amazon from Slovakia. He never sees or touches his product. Our guest today is new in her journey. She's only been doing this a few months, but she's got proof of concept. She's got a profitable business. She's got big goals. She wants to be very soon putting a couple $1,000s of profit per month in the bank with her efforts. She's got a beautiful catalog of products that she can select from and sell, whichever ones make the most sense. Software helping her automate the whole process. She learned all of that in a relatively short period of time from our community, from our training. And now she's talking about her excitement in the first few steps of her journey. Like I said, she's only sold several thousand at this point, but it's a profitable business and she's very proud of it, as she should be. So, when you're international, let's just spend a moment here. You live outside the United States, you want to buy and sell in the United States. The briefest possible explanation of how that happens is you're not shipping the inventory to where you live, obviously. You're just shipping it to someone else in the US that handles your inventory for you. So you shop online on a United States based website, you buy the inventory, it goes to a partner. We call these prep centers. We got a whole list of them for you. You can pick from. Susanna today talks about how she picked one. It wasn't hard, she said. Those are her words. It wasn't hard. She found one. They handle her inventory and send it in for her. So she's freed up to just source and shop and find stuff she wants to buy. Well, that can be done if you live in the United States as well. Obviously, you don't have to have the stuff shipped to your house. That's another reason I love talking to international sellers is because it reinforces what's possible. Even if you live in the United States, you can do it the same way our international sellers do. Don't send it to your house, send it to a prep center. There's a bunch of them. There's going to be even more. We've got a bunch of new prep centers coming on scene because there's so much demand in that arena. She talks a little bit about the above buy box strategy. We didn't spend a lot of time on that, but I just wanted to make sure you're aware. There is a training module inside of the Proven Amazon course library. That's our training library for $39 a month. You get full access to our entire library. Turn it off anytime you don't want it anymore. But one of the many modules, one of the many MANY modules inside there is one that teaches you how to find ASINs that you can price high and get sales, even if you're not competitively priced against the other sellers selling the same product. There's all kinds of products you can do that with. And interestingly enough, Susanna's first sale she was excited about was an above buy box sale. She ignored the buy box price, priced it high, and got her first sale that way. And since then, she's sold many, many items. She talks about Kickstart. This is the last thing I'm going to tell you about. Maybe one other little announcement, then we'll get Susanna on the line. Well, what's Kickstart? We didn't really explain in the episode that you're about to hear what Kickstart is. So let me just set that up a little bit. So when you hear her mention it, you know what she's talking about. Every student of the Proven Amazon course who's enrolled is eligible to sign up for a Kickstart group. That is where we hand hold you through those first few steps of getting into your business, helping you find your first product, ship your first product, going through the iteration one time with you, holding your hand with another small group of new sellers. That way, you know the process. So you can find out more information about the Kickstart program at silentjim.com/kickstart. Now, you have to be a proven Amazon course student to get into one of these groups, but you'll be in there with a small handful, somewhere between 5 and 12, typically other new students, with a coach on our team walking you through the process of sending in your first shipment, finding that first product. And that's what Susanna talked about today when she mentioned how helpful Kickstart was. Many people love having that hand holding accountability. You can go through the content and do it yourself, or have someone right there with you, stepping you through it. And it's very worthwhile to get into one of those classes. I think that's it, except a little reminder. Hey, our live event is coming up in August. Circle that last full week of August 2026. Circle it on your calendar, mark it out. You're going to be doing a little bit of travel to a great place, a great conference. Hundreds of listeners to this show or more are going to descend on an event that we'll be telling you more about very soon. You can keep an eye on theprovenconference.com to get all the details. As the details come out, they'll be posted there and you can grab your tickets, show up. We're going to have some early bird pricing. So you want to get on the early notification list when we pop that out there. Let's get over and spend some time with my new friend who lives in Istanbul. Let's spend some time with Susanna Tarok. Enjoy. So, Susanna, welcome to the podcast. Good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, Jim. I'm really honored. It's a big surprise for me to be on the podcast this early on, but I'm up for the challenge.
Yeah, well, I really enjoy meeting students at all different levels of their journey into e-commerce. And even after having done 1,100 episodes, I still look forward to those days where I've got a conversation like this on my schedule. So if you're ready to go, let's have some fun diving into your story a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Susanna with a tricky spelling. That's because I'm from Hungary originally. But now we've been living in Istanbul, Turkey with my family for 4 years. And that's part of why I found Amazon as a possible source of income. I used to work in supply chain management. So I do have a history of working for a big company. It was a large semiconductor company. I was being a consultant or project manager there. And when my husband received a job opportunity here in Istanbul, we decided to move the family here. We have two little kids. And the first 1 or 2 years, I was just needed at home. So my career was on hold. New language, new country, so on. And then I would slowly start looking for things to return on the work market. But it was not easy because I was not allowed to work in Turkey because of my husband's job. He works at the consulate. And employing me remotely from Europe was also not easy because Turkish taxation is not something a lot of companies are willing to take on. So I started looking what I could do part-time, full-time, find another source of income without the nine to five in the office. And that's when I discovered Amazon. I did have my learning money, looking for opportunities online and then, looking at funnels to attract traffic. And I did pay, luckily, just like $50 on a training, but it was really not something worth the money. And then luckily, the algorithm found out I was looking for something like this and Silent Gym popped up. And I looked into it, and you had the $7 discounted membership, I think for a limited time. And I jumped in. I thought, okay, I wasted $50. I can waste seven. That's fine. And let's look into it. And as I said, I used to work in supply chain management. So I like structure. I like processes. I like training materials. I used to create training materials.
Wow.
So
Okay.
even with the limited access I had at that time, I could see that this is something that's worth a shot. And that's how I jumped in. Although I took my time looking around, that was last summer, I think, that I started with the trainings. And actually, I was also in the Facebook group. I loved the Facebook group. trying to pick up the language, because I think when you're starting out, you hear a lot of words like replan and Amazon did this or that or an IP complaint. All of this was completely like Chinese for me. And I know from my job back, we also had our terminology and you need some time to get used to it. So I think I don't consider it a waste of time that I did take some time just lurking around the Facebook group and doing the basic trainings. And then I decided that it's a go. I want to dive in. And I switched to the full version and I signed up for Kickstart. And that was in October.
So you got
And
the proven Amazon course and
yeah,
Kickstart in October. So
yeah,
November, December, January, February, we're about 5 months into your journey where you said, okay, I like this community. I like what I'm seeing. I like this business model. Let's give this a serious shot.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And, the thinking behind is that I think what was hard for me is that I'm playing with our family's money, right?
Yeah.
So I signing up for a training is one thing, and then investing even a few $1,000s, that's a responsibility. And that's why I loved Kickstart because it really was, the kick I needed to take action, not just sit on the sideline. I already had my Amazon account set up by that time as an individual account. And then in October with Robin Joy and the group, it was really helpful to see step by step what needs to be done. And I did the steps, although I was a bit behind the group actually, because, the first surprise was thrown at me from Amazon that even though my account was validated once, they needed to validate again. And I had to wait for a postcard to arrive to my address in Hungary. So that was some delay. But then I created my first shipment in November. And since then, I've shipped 13 shipments to Amazon. And my first sale happened in December, right after Christmas. And it was unexpected because I was not expecting that November shipment to check in actually. But there was one item that was sold while on the way. And I remember I was just jumping up and down for a $20 sale and showing my husband and my kids that, look, I sold something in the US because, I'm Hungarian in Istanbul. And I did all these steps and I sold something. And, it was a textbook above the buy box sale to make it perfect. So it was the perfect first sale, I think.
Oh,
That
so it
rarely
was
happens.
above the buy box. So you weren't even competitively priced and you're making sales.
No, no,
That's
I
so
said,
great.
okay, let's say price high. It will get there. We will see what happens. And it didn't even get there. It was sold. And my family was, of course, supportive, but they were like, okay, so how much money did you make on this? And I said, hell yeah, $1.50 or $2, right?
Right.
Something like that, after all the costs. But still, it was a sale. So it was the first proof of concept. And then,
Exactly, which is a significant moment. Most people who attempt to launch a business of any kind online never achieve that moment, unfortunately. Now, in our community, that if you follow the system, most people, the vast majority do. But I'm saying of all the business models that are out there, you talked about some of the other stuff you'd tried, the funnel, course that you'd invested in, that sort of thing. I've talked to countless people. They've tried affiliate marketing and all these other business models, and they never get a sale. They just learn a bunch of stuff. They never actually sell anything. So we celebrate with every student, even that first $20 sale that had $2 of profit or whatever it was once it was all said and done. We celebrate that because that proof of concept moment is a very big deal.
yeah, and it was a huge encouragement because I posted it in the Facebook group and, a lot of people were just commenting and congratulating. I think even you liked it. And I was like, wow, it's so encouraging. Before I move on to the next month, which was the first real month, because I'm an international seller, I want to mention one more thing is that I needed a prep center, right? So my process is that I buy something in the US, I ship it to my prep center, my prep center ships it to Amazon, and then it is sold from there.
Right.
And
You never see or touch your inventory because you're in Istanbul.
exactly.
Right.
And I think I hesitated a lot because I thought that picking a prep center would be something complicated, a contract or regulations and so on. But I want to say that it was a lot easier than I thought. There are a lot of options. I know you can change your prep center easily if you are not satisfied. So far, I'm really satisfied with mine. We have got good communication and so on. But that was one thing that was holding me back. And it turned out to be one of the easiest steps in the process.
Yes, and I absolutely love seeing our international students, and there's a lot of you. I love seeing you succeed because, as you've mentioned, Susanna, you have a couple extra challenges that those of us in the United States don't have. You never get to see or touch your inventory. You've got to use a prep center. You've got the initial challenges of getting your account set up, right? But if you can do it, it's just so encouraging to so many others. Like, wow, okay, it's working. She's
Yeah,
from Hungary. She lives in Istanbul and she's selling on Amazon without seeing or touching her inventory. It's a great story.
yeah.
It's
Yeah, and also there is one more thing to it is that when you see people posting their first month selling on Amazon, that's not really their first month. That's at least their second or possibly even the third.
yes, it takes
Mm,
a little time to get ramped up
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
I was starting in Q4, so that also made things slower because Amazon was super busy and shipments were slower to
Right.
be checked in. But that's also something I believe for my family, for example, they saw me working, they saw me doing this, and nothing was happening at the beginning. What is visible, and once it starts and you build up the process, you build up the different the prep center and the shipments and so on, then you can fuel the beast, and then it starts up. So and that was also a learning experience for me. Then in January was the first real month, and it turned out pretty well. I sold $1,600 of products. I was spending, and I am still spending, the majority of my time on sourcing. Before the call, I looked up all of the files I saved from Kipa, to go through, to filter based on what we learn in the training and based on, I think, Jimmy Smith's videos are really, really helpful when you want to understand Kipa. And you have to review thousands of products. And when people say that I am gated in everything, it is true. But what is also true is that you are ungated in a lot of things as well. And it's a numbers game at the beginning. And it's tiring and maybe boring at some point, but it's going to change. So it's a temporary effort you have to focused effort you have to put into this. And I think I try to tolerate this part of the game, and I managed to add asins relatively quickly. So now in my third month, I already have 70 asins
Good.
under my account.
Wow.
Of course, I'm not selling all of them yet. Some are on the way, some I have just discovered, some I'm ordering now. Of course, some are not selling well. So some I will have to just sell off at a not so nice price at the end. But I also did find ones that I am replenishing now. And that makes it a lot easier to find some winners. Also about sourcing, if I can give super new people some advice, one is that yes, Keepa has all the data and it is boring to review and check if you're ungated, but it works. I also signed up for 3P Mercury. I still have to integrate everything in there, but the gate check function is already a big help because you're not checking things 20 by 20, but you are doing it in bulk. Even if you don't have the source matched yet or the price matched yet, you can check if you're ungated. And also, if you find something, then you need to check the brand and find other products. And once you find some ASINs, which you are selling, I really love checking the competition, storefronts, stalking them. And I have found a lot of new products that way with
That's
Kipo, of course.
fantastic. Well, I'm curious, may seem a bit off topic. How many languages do you speak? Your English is phenomenal.
Thank you. I used to work in English. So I speak Hungarian, I speak English, I speak a bit of German, and I learned Turkish as well here.
it's it's I knew you were multilingual. I wasn't sure what else you had in the mix, but your English is phenomenal. And you've really given some very valuable tips to new sellers as to how this plays out. And that's the point of this episode. We've got plenty of episodes where I've interviewed people who are doing seven figures and they've built these incredible businesses. But you're learning those initial lessons. You're going through the process. You've got proof of concept. You've sold several $1,000s worth of products at this point. Your perspective is invaluable. So I love just listening to what your perspective is. It's been a long time since I was a new seller. So
Yeah,
you're speaking with more clarity, perhaps, to the newest of our students than I even could with some of your observations. So you said you're using 3P Mercury now. You've got 70 ASINs in there and you're testing or have already sold a lot of them, right?
yeah,
Uh, yeah. So you mentioned storefront stalking as well, which is one of my favorite strategies. You just look at what other sellers are selling, and if they've got some good ASINs in the mix, you throw them into your catalog. Right. You mentioned
yeah,
digging deeper on some of the brands. If you find you're ungated for one ASIN, what brand is that ASIN? Okay, let's go find other ASINs of that same brand. Now you get your catalog can be growing very quickly. I
yeah,
think, Susanna, where you'll be at within a relatively short period of time is where you're adding dozens or hundreds or even more ASINs every single day. And even the ones that you're gated on, you mentioned, that's a temporary condition. We've solved that.
yeah,
Ungating is just an autopilot thing. It takes a little time and a few sales, but you recognize that. Some great
yeah,
observations so far. So where else do you want to go? I'm curious what else you'd like to share. Probably speaking to some people who are considering this business model or who are brand new in their journey. I think that's your message is
yeah.
resonating. What else do you have for
Still,
us?
still about sourcing, I would say that after selling a total of $5,000 and above 100 units, I would not say it is that's the exact limit. I know it's an algorithm and regular shipments also count, but I did notice that ungating gets a bit easier. And
Oh,
now I have a feel for what kind of categories I will be ungated if I click on, apply to sell. And I know that I will not stand a chance for the big brands, but the middle or smaller, like niche brands, I can click and sell now. And that makes things a lot easier. In there, for example, ChatGPT was also helpful for me because, I was selling a brand successfully and I said, okay, give me the competition of this brand, but the same size. So not the big ones, like the same competitors on the same level. And it gave me brands that I never knew, I was not familiar with.
that's
And some of
fantastic.
them I researched and I could get ungated and
Wow.
sell products.
What a great tip. I've never heard anyone else, not even any of the multiple seven-figure sellers who are crushing it, give that tip. So you went to ChatGPT and you in with one of the brands that you're ungated for, and you said,
Yeah,
"Hey, AI, what other brands of similar size compete with this company?" And it gave you a
yeah.
list. That's a great way to find new brands. I love it. That's
I,
very creative. Did you hear that tip somewhere or did you think of that yourself?
no, I just thought I would give it a shot. I
That's a
like
great idea.
experimenting with AI now. Um,
Yeah, right.
and it was really helpful. It works best when it's not a large, so really like niche categories.
Exactly.
For
Yeah.
example, just like broad categories. For example, greases for machinery. I don't know any brand by heart for that. I found one when I was, reviewing Kipa, and I was successfully selling that. And of course, you can check on Amazon as well what else people buy from that category.
Exactly.
But
What
it
other
will
competing
mix
products?
sometimes, the size of companies. It
Mm,
will show you the best sellers first, and then I stand a worse chance of getting ungated. So this was something new that I found now.
right.
I,
Those top 1% brands can be difficult to get ungated in, and I would argue that you really don't get that much benefit from being ungated in most of them anyway. Because what we saw a lot of times was new sellers, especially, they'd get ungated for, say, Nike, and they get so excited. Oh, I'm ungated in Nike. And they'd go super deep looking at all Nike ASINs all day, every day, and just get all in. And suddenly Amazon and Nike would decide, well, we don't need quite as many Nike resellers as we had last year.
yeah,
Let's cut a few out. And your business is done because you're not diversified enough. So I would much rather see sellers take the approach that you have, Susanna, and diversify in those mid tier, I'm talking tens or hundreds of millions of ASINs that are very popular. They're just not name
Yeah.
brands that people recognize. There's so much opportunity there. It's an unlimited and steadily growing pool of opportunity. That's where I like to see new sellers spend their time. And you've instinctually drifted there already because why spin your wheels trying to get ungated on things that are virtually impossible to get ungated on? Let's just go after those mid-level brands where there's all kinds of opportunity. So well done. Yeah, you've got great
Yeah.
ASINs.
And also what you said about going deep, I avoid that at this stage at all costs, even though it's enticing. I have one or two brands where I'm selling really quickly, selling my inventory through, but I am keeping myself from ordering more at a time. So I'm willing to go up to 25 or maybe 30, but I don't dare to order more.
That's
I
a
will
good
just look
feeling.
for more products. Maybe later on, my risk tolerance will be higher. But right now, I really keep to the mile wide, inch deep principle
Good for you.
with
And just so I can hear
choices.
it in your own words and so other sellers can learn why that is, you just said you don't buy more than 25, 30 units of anything really at all, ever. Why is that? What's the risk if you were to say, get a discount and go buy 300 units of that product? What
Mhm.
risk are you taking there that you avoid by
Yeah, I can
paying a
say.
little more and getting smaller quantities?
Yeah, I can say exactly because that was a learning curve for me in my first month. You know, Christmas time, I did buy some toys and I was regated in them instantly. And because I was buying, you know, two, three, four, five units, I could return. It was not comfortable, of course, and it was a loss. But instantly it reminded me that if I had ordered 100, then I would be in big trouble.
Hey, we'll get back to the episode in just a moment. There's a new sponsor that I'm excited to tell you about. They're called 2D Workflow. What do? Well, they save you a bunch of money on your inbound shipments when you send product to Amazon FBA. That's right. They've gone out and negotiated with the same carriers you're already used to using. They just have better rates. You can check out the tool completely free for 2 weeks, send in a few shipments, compare prices side by side before you choose what you're going to do. And if you're not saving money, if you don't like it, just uninstall it. It's going to speed up your shipments. It's going to get you some better rates. 2D Workflow is the name of the company. Get the great 2 week free offer at silentjimdotcom slash 2D. That's the number two, the letter D. Go check them out. Tell them we sent you. Let's get back to the episode.
Then I would be in big trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were able to return the product. You said you were regated, like an ASIN that you thought was open, it closed. Those things happen. Typically, it's on the more popular ASINs where the closing and opening happens, right? Again, it's good to avoid those top 1% brands. If you've seen them on TV before, or they have a website that gets millions of visitors a week for their brand, it's probably going to be gating and ungating going on there. But the
Yeah,
other risk you take when you buy a bunch of units, and I know you know this, Susanna, but I'm just helping the listeners too, is let's say I go buy 100 units of something. What if that very same day Amazon buys 50,000 units and
yeah,
pays pennies on the dollar? You're stuck. The beauty of being a reseller is you can be small, pivot, get in, get out. You get stuck
yeah,
with 3 or 5 or 7 units of something. All right, I'll liquidate out. No big loss. You take the low hanging fruit. You don't pick every apple off of every tree you see. You just grab the low hanging fruit and you move on because there's
yeah,
unlimited low hanging fruit out there. That's the model.
yeah. I also feel that one of the key things here is that I need to remain flexible. So I need to be able to give up ASINs without any hard feelings
No
and
emotion. Yep.
no emotion, and of course no big loss,
Yeah.
because worst case scenario I will sell it for less.
Yeah.
And it's still probably cheaper than a return or a customer complaint or anything like that. I also had the case that you just mentioned that Amazon jumps on and sells a lot. And it was one of my first ASINs, I think. And now Amazon ran out of stock. And I was so surprised to see it on my phone popping up that, wow, I sold it. I have two units, but I sold it finally. I had to wait a
That
bit for
happened to
this.
us yesterday on it was a fairly popular toy item that we held on to for a couple months. Amazon ran out and people were paying our crazy price and cleaned us out. I mean,
Yeah, I also
Amazon
didn't
runs out.
increase the price because I was like, until Amazon is there, no one will buy mine anyway. So I can just keep it as is and see if
Mhm.
someone clicks on it by mistake or if Amazon runs out. So yeah.
Well, what else do you want to share? You're doing a great job. I wouldn't mind hearing what your numbers are. I mean, I know we're only a few months into your journey.
Yeah,
But
I can share. So first month was 1,600. Second month was 2,200. So there was an okay increase there. And that's when I started to use SellerBoard because I wanted to track my numbers. I signed up for the free trial, but actually I will choose to keep it because it gives me clarity and I'm quite analytical. So I like to see my numbers. And in that second month, my return on investment was 8.5%. So still tiny, but it was positive. And it meant that I already paid the Amazon subscription at least. And then this month, I am at the same level now, and it's exactly the half the month now. So I'm at 2,200. So I'm hoping to hit 4,000 this month. If it will be five, then I'm super happy. And then, 10K is the next big goal.
which the trajectory that you're on right now will be within a couple of months, I'm estimating, depending on how aggressively you spend. But you're finding ASINs that are worth testing. You understand the system. You're mitigating your risks, which is a big part of this, meaning you're protecting your capital. My worst case scenario, for example, an ASIN, my worst case scenario is break even.
Mm.
So I'm going to go in, test high. If it doesn't work out, I'll get my money back. You take that approach, you're going to have more winners than losers with the system you've got. You're going to be at 10,000 in no time. You're going to,
I hope so. And also, what I like about the numbers is that my return on investment and margin also doubled. So I sold the same amount as last month in 15 days now, but I have a 17% return on investment now.
it's
So
17% net margin, I'm thinking, or is that
uh,
ROI?
ROI, yes.
Got you. Okay.
So margin is still a bit lower, but
Mhm.
my ultimate goal is to reach 20% with ROI and around 10% margin. And I know you can go higher, but I think when you are playing still on the lower thousands,
Yes.
it's not easy to reach.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a tremendous job, and you can improve on those things. You're going to find you're going to find a handful of perfect, beautiful ASINs that is just going to, the 80/20 rule will really start to kick on, is what I'm saying. So 20% of your catalog is just going to be gorgeous, and it's going to really ignite
I
your
hope so.
excitement for this business. And the rest of the 80% you're kind of playing with and tweaking at any given time. But that top 20% is
Mhm.
is going to carry you and get you into some beautiful territories where, yeah, your goals are very achievable, very achievable, and you should be very proud of where you're at. You've built a beautiful foundation, and something I appreciate about your story, Susanna, is you understand that there's a bit of a learning curve and a leaning into the process, the intense, focused effort stage of this business where you're doing more learning than you are selling, but now you're starting to see that curve and getting feeling that excitement every time you see a sale pop through. It's a fun place to
Ye-
be.
Exactly. And also, what I wanted to mention as well for new sellers is that I think it is a business where you have to be ready to pivot, which we already mentioned. But also, I think you mentioned that when you have difficulties or when you have roadblocks or, curveballs sent at you from Amazon, that's also a learning opportunity. And in my 3 months, I already had, the case you mentioned that Amazon jumps on a listing. I had the case when I was sending something to the warehouse and I was regated. And then it was really interesting to figure out that some I could sell off, some I had to return, some were in my prep center. So I could figure out that process as well early on. Then last month, I also had an IP complaint, counterfeit without test buy. And of course, my heart rate jumped through the roof because
The
that's
first
not
one.
something you want to see. But then I just did the steps as prompted, and I uploaded my invoices or receipts. I was sourcing from an authorized reseller, and it was approved in no time. And my account health also was restored, and I can keep selling the product actually.
That's
So
fantastic. I love it. Yeah, that first IP complaint, people sometimes get nervous. And I heard from a student yesterday. He hadn't gone through our training. He was just coming into our community because he was having problems. He was sourcing from eBay and thrift stores and used product and all kinds of irresponsible sourcing. And he was coming to us because he said, "Well, I got an IP complaint and they rejected my receipts." Like, oh, you haven't been trained properly. You've made some big mistakes. But you're a glowing example of what happens when you follow policy. You understand that you can source from authorized retailers and websites only, which is, there's tens of thousands of them, if not more. Um, but there's bad ones out there too. How do you tell? Right? That's part of the learning curve, and you're doing that part right. What store was it? I'm just curious. Is it a store that we would recognize that you had sourced from?
I was actually buying from the brand directly, so it
Directly
was
from the
easy.
brand. So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But obviously, you're going to
yeah,
be in good shape there. Yeah, authorized to sell
yeah.
their own brand. Obviously, well done.
Yeah.
Well, great. What?
Also had, some products damaged by Amazon.
Oh,
And
right.
what happens there? I also had to figure that out, and I was reimbursed, of course, lower than what I was paying for the product. But now I looked into it, and I know how I can, record my cost of goods and how I can increase it based on information I learned from the group.
Mhm.
So that's also, a cheap lesson, because it was one item. I lost $5 on it, and
Right.
now I know what happens if this comes along.
Yeah, yeah. All these little lessons you're learning, you'll be able to manage this at scale or have someone else managing your account for you at scale. And yeah, these are the little speed bumps you hit. This is just the reality. The seven-figure sellers, they'll have a good handful of IP complaints every month, and they just, print out
Yeah,
the receipts and invoices that Amazon's asking for, send them in, keep right on smooth sailing, right? So the little challenges scale as your numbers scale, but you'll have the systems and the knowledge to just treat it like, it's just any other
yeah.
little daily task or challenge that you might
And
face.
and and if you're playing clean, then there is a solution.
Every
Sometimes it's
time.
not what you expect or how you expect it, but there is a solution. I
Yeah.
was joking about it with my husband that we live in Turkey now, and we love the country, we love Istanbul, but it's a bit chaotic.
Mm.
And in our first weeks, we realized that when there is a problem, there is always a solution, but 90% of the time, not the way you thought before. So they will figure it out, but in a different way. And I feel that on Amazon, it's a bit like that. You face challenges and you will figure it out. Maybe you don't know now exactly how, but you know the direction, and in the end, it can be figured out.
You're
Um,
absolutely right. There's typically multiple solutions for any challenge that gets thrown at you with Amazon, and I think you're at an advantage now, Susanna, compared to having joined the Amazon seller ranks, say 4, 5, 6 years ago. The advantages now are Amazon is just so much more consistent in the way they describe their policies, the way they enforce their policies, what they ask for. They operate and function with predictability now, whereas before it was kind of chaotic. It's very
mm,
predictable now. The rule is clear, what they ask of you is clear, the options you have available to you are clear, and it's a good time to be a seller because of that. And then you mix on top of that all the tools and strategies we have now that we didn't have back then that give us a huge advantage. You really are getting into this arena at a great time. Your timing is phenomenal. And you're international, which I absolutely love hearing from our international students who are crushing it without seeing or touching their inventory. It's just
yeah.
it blows me away that what you guys have
I
been.
have also switched to an LLC. So I created my US LLC, and I switched my personal account to that, which helped to overcome one of the challenges that other international students will face as well, is that you cannot really pay with your international credit cards at a lot of retailers. And PayPal is a good workaround for that, but sometimes even that will not help.
Mhm.
And now it makes my life a lot easier to also have a US credit card on my name and on the company name, and I can use that to pay. And that also looked
That
like
works.
a huge challenge, but there are companies setting up your LLC for you if you're not willing to do that. If you are willing to do that yourself, I think you can do it even remotely. But it was also easier than I imagined it to be.
Yeah, it's not. It's just a box you have to check. Yeah, our international sellers who want to sell in the United States, there's just a few more steps they have to take than the rest of us, and then we're pretty much doing the exact same business. We've got
Yeah.
we've got sellers in our community. Joseph in Slovakia comes to mind.
Mhm.
Last time I talked to him, it's been coming up on a year or so since I spoke with him, but he was doing $6 or $7 million in reseller sales from Slovakia. He never sees or touches his inventory using prep centers. Right? He'll come to the United States and meet his team and talk to some because he's doing significant business, but never sees or touches any of his inventory. This business can scale beautifully from anywhere.
Yeah, that was one of the episodes I watched where Joseph Biz was there. We are neighbors. I'm Hungarian,
Right.
so it was really motivating for me.
Yeah,
And also Samia was another podcast
that's right.
episode that I loved not
Yes.
long ago, I think.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be on that list of names now of people who have motivated and encouraged other people to pursue their business dreams. And you'll have someone come up to you at an event or send you a message and say, "Hey, if it wasn't for you, I never would have been
No,
motivated to do this."
this would be flattering, but I still need to be back 1 year from now with my huge business to
Oh, we'll
reach
have
that
you
rank.
back. We'll have you back. What is your, based on what you've seen so far, this is a good question. Your first few months in to this adventure, what is your goal for your first year? What do you hope to hit by the end of 2026? Have you given that much thought? What's realistically going to happen if you stay on this?
Yes, I have a short-term goal for this year, also synchronizing it with our family goals, which is that we will leave Turkey with heavy hearts, but our placement here will come to an end. And we are thinking about moving again, not returning to Hungary. And we are thinking about Southeast Asia for now.
Wow.
And in order to live a life there, I figured that within this year, I could come up with that kind of income if everything continues as I wanted to continue with my Amazon business. So my first goal is to reach $2,000 profit uh, on a monthly level, which would be, selling consistently around $15,000, $20,000. I am in a lucky position because I can add more funds. I'm careful to add because it's my family savings. And,
Yeah.
we are a family on the road now. So we need that for other things as well. But it would be a dream come true if I could finance that next excursion that we plan.
Wow.
And then going from there, what I try to explain when people ask if it's a business that you can keep on doing is that actually I have to do the same thing just with more ASINs. So you're not growing by going deeper or investing in one product even more, but you're just adding more things to your portfolio.
Ex-
So it's actually the same risk level, whether you're doing, if you approach it this way, it's the same risk level if you're having 20 products or 70 or 500, because each product can go out from your catalog anytime and new products can come in. So it should be manageable, in my
Yes, it
opinion.
absolutely is. And you make a brilliant
I will have to
observation.
automate a bit. I see that
Mhm.
later on, but so far with this many products, I am still willing to do the job myself to learn the processes.
Yeah. Yeah, and you will outsource some of that as you go, but your risk level remains, like you said, very flat. As long as you don't start buying, 5,000 units of some ASIN you're excited about reselling, then your risks do go up. But if you stay, like you mentioned earlier, inch deep, mile wide, meaning very diversified, selling just a few units at a time of a whole bunch of different products, letting the software do the heavy lifting and decision making, which the bigger your portfolio gets, the more you're going to appreciate 3P Mercury. We have
Yeah,
sellers with not just thousands, but tens of thousands or even 100,000 or more ASINs. That's completely overwhelming to track if you were to try to do it manually, even with a
yeah,
team of virtual assistants. How do you possibly know what to buy and what's selling well and what you should buy next? 3P Mercury finds your top You don't have, what's your budget today? I've got to spend $3,000. Okay, well, let's go find the best possible ASINs and spread that $3,000 out over across the best ASINs in your catalog. And it
Mhm.
does it for you instantly. So you're heading that direction. You said you have 70 ASINs now. It won't be long. You have 100, 500, 1,000, 5,000. And this is going to be a reality much quicker than I think you're estimating. A few $1,000s a month in
Using
profit,
figures.
that's right around the corner for you. That's right around the corner. You're on a great
Yeah,
trajectory.
that would be awesome. I enjoyed the ride so far. I really love the community. My only regret is that I didn't start sooner because I could have actually. The kids were, when we moved here, the little one was just 1.5 year old, and now he will go to school next year, and he speaks Turkish and English as well, besides Hungarian. So they no longer need me 24/7. So I have more margin on that, and I'm in a lucky position now.
You've started it at a great time. We hear all the time, man, I wish I'd have started this sooner. We do hear that a lot. You've got a great growth curve ahead of you. You're doing all the right things. You're in the right community. And it's an honor to have you as part of our group, Susanna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was time well spent. Do you have any questions for me or anything else you wanted to talk about before we go? Otherwise, I think we've captured a really good episode here.
Yes, I think I mentioned everything. I did make some notes and we covered like naturally all of them.
Very good. Well, that's great to hear. Okay, well, I'm going to talk to the listeners then for just a minute, Susanna. Okay, and then we'll wrap this one up. So, for those who hung out with Susanna and I, my new friend in Istanbul, hey, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. This is typical of what you can hear if you're new to our show and you're unfamiliar with this. This is typical of what you can hear if you scroll back in time. You're going to hear dozens, actually hundreds, over 1,100 episodes now, many of which, probably most of which, are interviews with students like Susanna at various levels of experience in their Amazon selling journey. We'd love to help you out with your journey as well. Jump into our free Facebook group, check out some other podcast episodes for free. And when you're ready to get started, reach out to us. There's links at silentjimdotcom that'll get you going in the right direction, including the Proven Amazon course, which is what Susanna mentioned earlier in the episode that got her started on her journey. We'd love to be there for you as well. Well, Susanna, thanks for spending some time. It's evening where you're at, and I really appreciate you
Yes.
carving out some family time to spend a few moments with me today and for the listeners as well. So God bless you, my friend. It's great meeting you.
Thank you very much. Very great talking to you, and it's an honor.
It's an honor for me as well, Susanna. Well,
Mhm.
we'll talk again soon. When you hit $10,000 for a month, or maybe whatever your other next goal is, I think that's going to happen here really soon, maybe 20 or 30. Let's have you back on the show and get everyone updated. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye for
Bye
now.
bye.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for spending some time with us today. One last time before I let you go, I want to remind you about that free offer from 2D Workflow. They're the ones that can help you save a lot of money on your inbound shipping with FBA. They've gone out and negotiated great rates with all the carriers you're already using. And you can see a side by side comparison as you're preparing your shipments. And if they have a better rate, use it. It's the same carrier, less money. Why not? Go check out silentjim.com/2D, the number two, the letter D, to see 2D Workflow. Thanks for spending time with us today. We'll have more great episodes for you very soon.